There were several standouts for the Sun Devils on offense during spring session, but I don't know if anyone stood out more than Jordyn Tyson.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcast, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the Google Play and App Store. Game on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back in as today we take a look at our spring biggest winners. We are focusing on offense today and defense tomorrow. Today, so I would tell you defensively, I think there was collectively more guys. Offensively, I didn't think there was like 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that were like big winners. But the guys that I did have here, man, I feel like they are ready to blow it up. And that's where we'll start our conversation is Jordyn Tyson absolutely dominated spring ball. Tyson, if you are unfamiliar, is a transfer receiver from Colorado. He is as fast as a speeding bullet, if we want to use a really old-fashioned comparison. He's just special. The way that it feels like the moment the ball touches his hands, he's a home run threat. Just because of how fast he is, how dynamic he is. This is a player that Arizona State, unfortunately, got to see firsthand and be on the opposing side of against him when he was playing for the Buffs. He had a 80-plus yard punt return and an 80-plus yard reception, both that went for touchdowns in ASU's game against against Colorado a couple of years ago. Now, he transferred to Arizona State last year, but he was recovering from a major knee surgery and basically missed all of last year. I believe he played a handful of snaps towards the end of the year, but certainly nothing significant and did not record any snaps on the year. Well, spring ball is here. He is 100%. The first couple practices, they were getting him adjusted, getting him ready to go. And by the second week of spring ball, he was 100%. He was participating in all receiver drills. He was running routes. He was doing the one-on-ones and was doing 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. He was out there full time. And it does not look like he has lost a step. We'll start with the one-on-ones. It did not matter who was going up against him. It could have been top guy, or it could have been third string. Whoever was going up against Jordyn Tyson, you felt like he was going to win that rep pretty much every time. In fact, I can't think of very many, if any, reps that Jordyn Tyson didn't win in the one-on-ones. He won in so many different ways too. Like, yes, obviously he's just so fast and you can't get a good press on him off the line of scrimmage. It's very difficult to be able to flip your hips and keep up with a guy who's running a low 4.4, maybe even a 4.3. I try to stay away from predicting that stuff, but it's pretty evident to see that this is the fastest guy on the team. And as soon as he gets past you, it's over. And the quarterbacks are just going to put some nice touch on that ball, and it's just dropping it right into the breadbasket. It's easy. It's one of those, like, I could make throws to Jordyn Tyson as long as I am able to hit him in stride, which that's not a guarantee because I have a noodle arm and I am not a quarterback. But he makes it to that point where the life of the quarterback is just so significantly easier because he's got a guy like Jordyn Tyson that is able to just find a way to create separation. And what you would like to see is him continue to develop as a route runner and find ways to beat you other than his speed. But that's going to come with time. And quite frankly, he's working with good receiving coaches. He got to work with Rashad Samples for a couple of weeks before he left for a new job at Oregon, and then picked it right back up working with Hines Ward, who had a wildly successful career at the NFL level and is somebody who clearly knows what he's doing right now. And the guys are gravitating to Coach Ward, and they are all in on his teachings. Tyson has responded very well to both of their teachings. He's responded well to Marcus Arroyo and Kenny Dillingham. He seems to be putting in all the work. And that deep ball has looked great, not just in the one-on-ones, because in the 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s, you see this guy just flying down the field. And it gets to a point where it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, all you can do is shrug your shoulders. You're like, I can't keep up with this guy. He is just that much faster than everybody else on the field. But he's not just faster. I mean, there's times where it feels like he's the most talented player on this team. And we've seen him high point some balls. Like, he makes the spectacular catches. You're playing Madden, you hold down the triangle. Yeah, the triangle button. I play PlayStation, not Xbox. Sorry. Don't know what to tell you. But you hold down the triangle button for that spectacular catch. That's what you're doing with Jordyn Tyson. And he's got 99 spectacular catch because he just goes up and plucks the ball right out of the air. It's just so easy for him. But he's beating you with good catches. He's beating you with the deep ball. If he continues to work on his craft as a route runner, sky feels like the limit. And that's what I have here in my notes is it feels like there's superstar potential here for Jordyn Tyson. Sure, it could be an overreaction, but pound for pound, this is one of the most physically gifted athletes that the Sun Devils have had. It's not a small kid. He's around 6 feet tall. He's anywhere between 180 and 200 pounds. I haven't seen what his official weight is. I didn't think to pull that up for myself, but he's not small. He's able to make those contested catches, but it's just the ability to beat you with his speed and beat you with his God-given talent. Where I am so curious is once the season rolls around and we're looking for full-time special teams guys, does he get back on the field as a punt returner? Because he did that at Colorado, and he was just so talented. It wasn't just against ASU. He had several good punt returns, but obviously the 80-plus yarder definitely looks really good on that resume. This is a stud. This is a beast. Once Elijah Badger entered the transfer portal, to me, there was a new opening for who the number one receiver was going to be, but not just an opening. Like, it was hey, we need to fill this right now. You are losing one of the best receivers of the 2020s that Arizona State had. Pressure's on. And with the way that Tyson has performed, you just feel like you could slide him in to that role. And I'm really interested to see if that's going to end up being the case, as if Tyson does slide into that role as your number one receiver. And this is a team with a lot of capable receivers. I've talked before about Melcon Stovall and Troy O'Mary and Jake Smith and some of the other younger guys on the team and some of the other veterans on the team. This is a deep room at receiver. And yet Jordyn Tyson has stood out in every which way possible as a special player. That's just it. He's special. You cannot look at this kid and see anything less than a budding superstar. Will he get to that point? Who knows? That's on him. But from what we can see, the talent's there, the upside is there. The sky's the limit for this kid. But there's other guys on this roster who also showed off some serious upside. And we're going to talk about the next guy here in just a moment. But spoiler alert, he's in the backfield and he's brand new to this team. We're going to talk about him here right now. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 for you to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and finding that you're having to turn the volume down with all the shouting, you should make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get back into our conversation and take a look at the next player to highlight. A player that is one of the most highly recruited talents that ASU has seen. Raleek Brown. Raleek Brown is a former super duper high 4-star / 5-star, depending on your source, if it's Rivals, if it's 24/7, On3, ESPN, whoever. This was somebody who came out a couple of years ago and was a top 50 recruit in the nation. He might have been top 25. And he's a spark plug. He's around 5'8", 5'9", about 180 pounds, something like that. Dynamic speed. And someone who can get it done in more ways than one. During his time at USC, was used sparingly. When he did get on the field, he looked like he had those flashes of the potential that he was recruited to be. Like, you saw why he was a 5-star recruit, with the speed, with the ability to catch the football. Just the fact that he is, in the same way I described Jordyn Tyson, you put the ball in his hands and he's a home run hitter. Raleek Brown has shown that promise at Arizona State. And he had a handful of highlights that were just impossible to ignore. He got some reps as a receiver out of the backfield and just put guys in blenders. I mean, the way he could cut, just so naturally cut on a dime, and just at that point, there's not much you can do unless you are like just an elite defender. More often than not, you just can't keep up with that. There's not very many defensive players that can, with such a shifty, talented, fast, explosive kind of running back like him. And it wasn't just as a receiver that he showed, but for what it's worth, this kid looks like a good receiver. This looks like somebody that can really catch the heck out of the football. And actually, I want to talk about that a little more before I get to my next point here. Arizona State wants to get the ball to their running backs in more ways than one. Sean Aguano said as much when I spoke with him earlier in March, was that we want to get these guys to catch the football. We want them to be able to do a lot more than just run the football outside the tackles. You have running backs that have shown the capacity to be receivers. Cameron Scottaboo last year looked like a good receiver. He had some awesome plays, including that 60-yarder against USC where he just was rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, tumbling his way into the end zone. Like, you have guys that are capable of doing that, and yet I look at Raleek Brown and I'm like, yeah, he's the best. This is the best receiver out of the backfield on this team, to the point where you could line him up out wide, put him in the slot, and you feel comfortable with it. He did as much as the USC. Like, there was a conversation when he transferred to Arizona State, hey, is this a running back or is this a receiver? And Kenny Dillingham said, yeah, no, this is a running back, but he reminds me of Kenneth Gainwell when I was at Memphis. This is someone that we believe can be kind of a do-it-all, like, what's the word? A Swiss Army knife for you. Just get in the football. But he might be the best receiving back on this team. He just runs good routes. You can tell that his time at USC, where he did develop some ability to be a receiver for the team, not just a runner, it's very evident there. So continuing to build on that, going to be critical for him to solidify his role in the offense as one of the most important contributors on the team. But what I wanted to go next to is this is just someone who's explosive as a runner, as a pure runner, inside the tackles, outside the tackles. From what we could see, I mean, he reads his blocking very well. And once he finds that hole, he just explodes through it. I mean, you've got a guy who's just so physically gifted when it comes to track speed. He finds a crease and boom, 10-yard game, 15, 20, breakaway touchdown. Whatever it is, the moment he gets that crease, you better be so stout as a defense that you're able to chase him down. But again, once that opportunity is there, it just feels like it's over. It's so impressive. He's one of the most explosive running backs that we've seen last 5 to 10 years. And ASU has had some good running backs. We've had Rachaad White. We've had Chip Trayanum. We've had Xavier Valade. We've had Cameron Scadaboo. And yet you look at Raleek Brown and you're like, from a pure talent standpoint, not production or anything like that, just from what you see from him on an individual level, he is as talented, if not more talented, than all of those guys. I feel like you could put him up there with an Eno Benjamin. And we'll get to that point. We haven't seen him actually play a game yet. I totally understand that. This is all projection. But from a standpoint of spring standouts that we're discussing, he's up there. Jordyn Tyson looked like a superstar in the making. Raleek Brown, at worst, looks like a perfect lightning to Cameron Scadaboo's thunder. And when you've got that kind of dynamic duo that can do the power running with the explosive running, and obviously Scadaboo can do more than just power running, but it's exactly what you're looking for this backfield, to be a complete unit, to have the guy who can break off the big run and then have the guy who can come in and just beat the you-know-what out of the defense and enforce their will. And ASU wants to run the football. They are loading up the offensive line, which looks pretty solid. You've got some versatile players along the offensive line, guys who can play inside and outside. They really experimented with it, and it was really cool to see. But you've got the running backs who are going to make the offensive line better. Like, they're just going to see those opportunities, whether it's a big hole or just enough of a crease to be able to squeak through. Raleek Brown is one of the front runners as the guys that is going to capitalize the most on those opportunities. He's a stud. He's a beast. He's flashing the 5-star potential that he had coming out of high school. Now you're putting him in a Kenny Dillingham offense that, in theory, will really be able to get him to that next level. He's special. He is someone that come training camp is going to have my full and undivided attention when it comes to the offensive side of the football. But we're not done talking about offense. There's young guys and a quarterback as well that we need to talk about. We'll get to them in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Game off. We got to pause right here and talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're thinking. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, such as unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings and heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames like digging for treasure or a Robo Penchico machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something to do and fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it for free now on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. And again, wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And of course, a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's wrap up this conversation. I want to talk about a couple of young guys, and then I want to talk about the man himself who will be manning this offense. Korbin Hendrix and Kaleb Black, two redshirt freshmen. They have stood out. And when I say stood out, I mean they look like big pieces of the future. You look at what the team has right now. Jordyn Tyson, redshirt junior. Troy O'Mary is in his last year. Jake Smith, I believe, is a redshirt senior, but he should have one more year of eligibility. Xavier Guillory is in his last year. Melcom Stovall is in his last year. So ASU is going to be looking for young guys. It's not just going to be about the transfer portal. They want to see the guys that they are recruiting and developing to be able to step up. Kaleb Black and Korbin Hendrix look good. Capital Good. These guys look certifiably ready to take over larger roles in the offense. And they press very different buttons for you. Kaleb Black's the smaller dude. He is the little, just get him the ball and let him be so shifty that he makes the defenders miss an open space. And he's still got some warts. There were some drops with him. It's going to take some more time to be able to get him to that point. But you saw him on the field a bit last year for jet sweeps and for real quick shovel passes and whatnot. He looked solid. He looked okay. You could definitely tell that he needed some more time to refine his work. And again, he's still not at a point where he's like an elite receiver, but you can tell that he's been working on himself. Korbin Hendrix, that's a guy who's really been refining the way that he plays. We didn't see him at all last year. I can't recall him getting on the football field. But this is a bigger guy at 6'3", 6'4", whatever his college height is. And he's showing it in camp. Like, he was able to high point some footballs and bring down those sideline catches for the 50-50 opportunities. It's also well known for your host, when it comes to body types for receivers, I prefer the big, long guys. I'm so partial to those 6'3" or taller receivers that you're just able to put the ball up in the air and they just have a size advantage to you. From there, it's just about being a good receiver. But I absolutely love the bigger receivers. Korbin Hendrix presses that button for me, and he's really showing that he's able to just go up and make a play. He's a stud. He's a beast. You can tell, just like Kaleb Black, he's been in the lab, and he's been working his way onto the field. Now, for what it's worth, with both Kaleb Black and Korbin Hendrix, I do not know what their role is. I don't know if they're going to be still developing. I don't know if they're going to find their way onto the field. In my opinion, if they keep doing what they're doing and they continue to stack good practices, you're going to have a hard time keeping them off of the field. But at worst, you feel good about the future with these guys to inherit the roles as the top receivers on this team. I'm a big fan of both of these kids. But I want to wrap up the podcast by talking about the man himself, the guy who's going to be under center, the man who beat out Jaden Rashada and forced him to transfer to Georgia, Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt, former four-star recruit out of last year's cycle, same cycle as Rashada, and he looks the part. I mean, he's someone that is just deceptively better than what you would think. There's the stigma that he's not going to be a running quarterback. There's the stigma that he is a pocket passer, and that's just not the case. I mean, this is a guy who can extend plays, and he's got a solid arm. I'm waiting to see if he can really unlock that deep ball on a grander scale. He can still push the ball down the field, but he can't beat you as a runner. But what's so impressive to me is he's looking to throw. He's not looking to run. He's not looking to run for 15, 20 yards unless it's there. We've seen quarterbacks before that are more interested in their rushing stats than they are their passing stats. And that's not the case with Leavitt. But I love the pocket presence and the poise that he showed. And if he continues to build upon that, you're going to get to a point where this guy is just going to be able to dissect you. Someone who's just going to be able to read a defense and go boom, 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 boom. Completion, 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 completion. And hit you at every level of the defense. Because again, I don't know if the arm is like dynamic, but he can still get the ball down the field with ease. Like, it's not a challenge for him. He doesn't have a noodle arm. And he can sling it in there. I was impressed with him. Maybe not to the point where, like, I thought this was for sure QB1. But at worst, he definitely looked like he was going to give whoever was ahead of him, whether it was Bourget, whether it was Rashada, give them absolute hell to maintain their spot as number one. And that's what we ended up seeing, was this guy usurped Rashada as QB1 on the team. And for good reason. He is distributing the ball. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some bad plays. There was a pick six to Tate Romney at one of the practices. There were some bad interceptions, for sure. He's a redshirt freshman. He's still getting acclimated to the college level. It happens. But the pure upside that you see with Leavitt, worth everything for me to be all in on this kid, to be the future of the program for at least the next 2 years. But perhaps better than everything, this kid's got confidence. He is more than aware of his ability to be a good quarterback. But he's also aware that this staff is all in on him. And he's aware that these teammates of him are going to be relying on him. He embraces it. He wears it as a badge of honor. I don't look at him as someone who's going to be stressed out by the limelight of being the quarterback and the face of the program. I don't see that at all from him. The opposite. I think you've got someone that is ready to take on the role of that. Not Hollywood. He's not sitting here going to be like, oh, yeah, look at me. I am the Arizona State Sun Devils football program. Everyone bow before me. I'm the guy. No, I don't see that from him. I see a gamer. I see somebody who's going to be like, yeah, by the end of this game, you're going to know who I am, because I am the one who's leading this team, and not from a cocky standpoint and not from some kind of self-righteous standpoint. No, this is a guy who is just aware that he is going to be relied upon for the wins and losses this year. ASU has expectations to become a bowl eligible team once again. It's going to be very predicated on the quarterback position. And it was very stressful when Jaden Rashada left the program, because he was a very high recruit. And he was someone that I have said many a times is going to be tied forever to the Kenny Dillingham era. Well, Sam Leavitt is inheriting that role. And I think he's relishing the opportunity. I'm excited to see what he can do. Leavitt, one of the biggest winners from spring ball, one of the biggest standouts, I should say, from spring ball. But between Jordyn Tyson, Raleek Brown, the redshirt receivers, and Sam Leavitt, those were the guys who stood out to me the most. And don't get me wrong, there were plenty of other guys as well. But I can't talk about every single one of them. Just know, when I'm taking a look at some potential superstars or potential big pieces of this team, these are the guys who stood out to me the most. Did I miss somebody? Was there someone that you think deserves more attention? Let me know in the comments, or you can hit me up on Twitter at Richie Brads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils, wherever you're getting your podcast. Hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And of course, a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Guys, we'll be back again tomorrow as we take a look at the defensive side of the football, the biggest standouts for the team, potentially biggest winners at all three levels of the field. I felt that there were guys who really stood out to me. We're going to talk about them tomorrow. I'll see you then. Till next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.